And I'm sorry, I'm wearing a tank top. Pam tells me that I should wear a tank top for this life. But anyway, just as a reminder for those of you who watch this for the first time, Pam and I have a business, travel business on the internet, an internet business in the travel industry. And we also have a brand called Cesar and Pam, CesarandPam.com, where we want to teach you how you don't have to sell your soul, your family, or your health to grow your business and achieve your dreams. It is actually by becoming a good steward of everything that God has given you that you can actually achieve those dreams. And today we're going to talk about a subject that is super important and super challenging, which is teenagers. Teenagers at home and teenagers in your business. If you have a business, we have employees. If you have a business, in our case, we have a network marketing business where you have leaders that start growing within the ranks of your organization and they become teenagers at some point. At first, they're babies, but then they start maturing and growing up. How do you deal with them? I think, Pam, that we thought we knew how it was going to work for us.
Yeah.
But we really didn't because we have 6 kids. You want to tell them about
Yeah.
our family?
We have 6 kids, and we had a lot of vision for really being involved in our children's lives and creating relationship with them so that when the teenage years came, that we would be like best friends. And I think we were confused about the transition. You know, we really just thought it would happen magically.
Naturally.
Naturally. It would just happen, you know, that there would be a point where we had trained them and then they would do everything we had trained them to do on their own, you know, be motivated, and we would have this great relationship all the time. And that wasn't realistic.
Why?
Well, we really haven't been sure why. You know, we get a lot of chances to do this right. I mean, it's a good thing we have 6 kids, right?
What ages are our kids?
Our oldest, our daughter, she is about to turn 26, and really
She's married.
Yeah, and she did everything that we had dreamed. I mean, she was
easy.
No problems. She really wanted to please. She was self-motivated, just a leader in so many ways. I mean, we've learned so much from her. So we just kind of had that same expectation for our sons. Our oldest son is 23. He'll be 24 this summer. And then we have a 20-year-old at home, a 16-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old who will be 12 this summer.
Yeah. So this book that we're going to share with you.
It's called Feeding the Mouth That Bites You. I heard the title.
Huh?
Yeah, I saw someone recommend. There's a podcast with the same title. I definitely encourage you to look it up. The author, Dr. Kenneth Wilgus, he is amazing, and he has a podcast with some moms. But I heard about the book, and at first I'm like, that's so negative. You know, we were just the parents that said, no, when we have teens, our teens aren't going to rebel, and we're going to have this great relationship. And we really, anything that would sound negative, like that title, we're like, that's not going to be our situation. But there's so much wisdom in this book. We have learned so much.
Well, because we made so many mistakes. I mean, I wish we had been as realistic as authors like this book and authors like this book are relating.
Running the Rapids.
Yeah.
By Dr. Kevin Lehman.
So like this one, it talks about some things that I already knew, but it just brought them home. Number one, the teenage years, adolescence, it's an invention of modern Western culture. It didn't exist. The first time it was used, the term was actually coined by Stanley Hall, the father of American sociology or psychology, one of those, I forget, in 1904. And the first time that the term teenager was written on the Reader's Digest was 1941. So think about that. Before that, when somebody turned 13, they were adults. Even if you look at Orthodox Jews, even to today in Hebrew culture, when a kid turned 13, they have a bar mitzvah where they welcome them into adulthood. And from 13 to 19, traditionally, before this, about a century ago, kids were longing to become adults. That's where true fulfillment was, in becoming an adult, in being productive, in starting your own family. And today we live in a culture that has glorified and worships youth in a never-ending time of growing up. So you see a lot of 35-year-olds that they're big men on the outside or big women on the inside, adult women, but inside they're little kids. And especially the men. I mean, the number one user for video games in America, it's men in their 30s. And I'm not saying the video games are wrong, but I think there is a desire to be significant where they are postponing the main things that turn you into an adult, which is one of them being starting a family. And I think there's definitely a transition today, not just physically, but emotionally, intellectually, and we're not preparing our kids to become fully functioning adults today. And our frustration, I think, to begin with the subject of what the solution will be, was that little kids are easy to raise, really, easier than teenagers. Why? Because of the concept of control. You can tell a child that to do something, and you give them clear consequences for it, and if they don't do it, you apply the consequences, and that's it. And you teach them a good concept of self-control, of self-management that will help them throughout the rest of their lives. But at some point, they stop being that little child that can be managed that way, and they start becoming adults. And you need to change the tactics.
Yeah, I think we thought that we wanted our kids to become adults and have more responsibility. And I think a lot of ways, our kids, our older ones, they showed a lot of responsibility. But I think we always wanted them to do it the way we wanted them to do it. We still wanted to have control over how that was achieved. Yeah. And I think what we found is that that's not the way to do it. There's a process, there's a transition, and it's not going to always look pretty. And it's not, they don't become adults and look just like you, make all the same decisions that you would make as a parent.
Yeah, I think from the baby boomer generation, 1946 to 1964, they were raised by the previous generation, which was the Great Depression, the post-World War II generation. They overprotected the baby boomers. They became the first me generation. That's when the term of the American dream was born as well. And then that generation, so think about the baby boomers, then you have the Gen X, and then the Gen Y, which is the millennials. And now today we have the Gen Z generation. And I think we have several generations that are just refusing to grow up. And us being in the right between baby boomers and Gen X, we didn't know how to raise our kids strategically, proactively teaching them how to become adults by the time they become by the time they're 18. I think, like you said, we assumed that it was just going to happen naturally. And we got frustrated, and we continued to want to exert control over them, which damaged our friendship with them for a season.
Yeah, so we learned after, especially our oldest son, that we were being too controlling. And we said, we no longer have control over our teenagers, our adolescents. What we have is influence in their lives. Mm-hmm. And we were saying that for a while now. But it wasn't until we read this book that we really had a way to implement that, like, what does that look like? What does this influence look like? What should our expectation be during this time of transition?
Yeah. And he relates a story in the beginning of the book of really what needs to happen is a planned emancipation, like liberation of a country. And he says, picture this. Mahatma Gandhi talking to the British generals in India. We think it's time that you recognize that you are masters in someone else's home. Despite the best intentions of the best of you, you must, in the nature of things, humiliate us to control us. It's time you left. The British official answered, with respect, Mr. Gandhi, without British administration, this country would be reduced to chaos. Gandhi says, I beg you to accept that there is no people on earth who would not prefer their own bad government to the good